You're listening to Last Word Radio, where you get the last word.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. This is March the 18th, 2019. With you today is myself, Carl, and Monday Night Nick.
Monday Night Nick. There's actually a story behind that nickname. My wife, when we first started dating, I used to never hang out with her Monday nights because Monday night was the night I caught up on my TV shows from the weekend. So I'd always spend Monday night in and order pizza and watch like 3 hours of television. So she started calling me Monday Night Nick. And now I don't get to be Monday Night Nick anymore. So thank you for allowing me to be Monday Night Nick tonight.
Yeah, it's nice if you do. Is pizza on the schedule for tonight?
Oh, no, not tonight. I had chicken nuggets again.
So I think what we need to change your name is Chicken Nugget Nick. Chicken Nick it? Can we put your name in there somehow?
I'm sure we could. I just don't think it would be good.
Yeah, we could. We just shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll figure that out. We'll brainstorm. I almost started the show by saying that it's August. I almost welcomed you to August 18th.
You just want to skip the whole off season.
I just wanted to get Jack Hughes and start that thing going.
Oh God.
It's nice and sunny outside. I was telling you, so maybe that's what's inspired this August-like feeling. I've got my baseball hat on. I'm ready.
I think we're all ready for the warm weather at this point.
Yeah. Nonetheless, it is March. And if
March.
You are still in a cold, go ahead.
I was going to say it's March 18th. It's the day after St. Patrick's Day.
It is the day after St. Patrick's Day. And we'll be talking about that tonight as well. If you are in a place that is cold still, because there are some, I was in a lovely spot called Red Deer this weekend. Visited Red Deer. It was minus 15 early Saturday morning in Red Deer. So if you're in Red Deer and you're listening, you should head to parkpower.ca. Park Power is one of the fantastic sponsors of the Alberta Podcast Network, and they will provide you with heat for your home. And if you head there, what's great about them is they support local charities. Obviously, they support great local initiatives like the Alberta Podcast Network. Head to parkpower.ca and change your power to Park Power to get you through these last little bits of the cold. And when we get heat, you can have air conditioning too. Their electricity and heating, it's a big deal. Let's start with St. Patrick's Day. It is obviously St. Patrick's, the Boxing Day of St. Patrick's Day, the day that everyone comes into work a little more sluggish.
A little sleepy. Definitely.
I chose to not have a hard day yesterday because it was a busy week for me coming up, and but that is not the case at the NHL. We saw this past weekend St. Patrick's Day things everywhere,
all over. And I was at the Leafs game Friday night, and they were in those very pretty jerseys, but everything was green and Patty's Day themed. And as I was taking in all the highlights, I was thinking to myself, why? Why does the NHL love St. Patrick's Day so much? It's kind of weird, isn't it?
It is. They don't celebrate other random made-up holidays like Valentine's Day, right? Like, sure, I'm sure the kiss cam is in full effect on Valentine's Day games, but you're not seeing pink jerseys thrown out there for that. Obviously, there is, every team does their, breast cancer or a cancer awareness night, and they put on the pink jerseys. But that's not St. Patrick's Day. Everyone's got the green on.
They're not playing like sappy love songs between whistles.
Yeah, I assume that it was all 100% Dropkick Murphys the entire time, was it?
It was the whole time. It's just Irish music.
Yeah.
And then watching the highlights of other games on Saturday too. Lots of green, lots of themed things going on.
Do you want more or less of those themes in the NHL? Like, do you care as a fan going to a game?
I think as a fan going to a game, no. I'm there to watch hockey. For me personally, that's how it is. But I think for them, it's a marketing opportunity, and they can get brands and sponsors on board to do different things.
Well, obviously, although the warm-up jerseys are usually, if they go the green version, they're auctioned off for some sort of charity. That's always a good thing, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, when you start to wear the St. Pat's jerseys the Leafs wore, they got 2 games out of those.
They did.
Yeah.
They wore them on Saturday too.
So you were at the Sens version of it, or were you at?
No, I was at Friday. They played the Flyers. What a crazy game that was.
Oh, that was the 8. What was it? 8-7?
7-6.
Yeah.
I think it was like 5-2 at the end of the second period, and they won 7-6.
Yeah, there was a lot going on there. Was that something that had the Leafs being good, or sorry, the Flyers being good, the Leafs being bad? What was it that actually made that good?
That made the game good?
Yeah, like what made it that comeback? Like you said, it was crazy. I assumed it was good. I wasn't able to watch it. I know, talking with some Leafs fans, they hated it, but.
Well, I mean, I think for Leafs fans, it's pretty anxiety-inducing watching the team go down, especially with the way they've been playing lately. But I don't know. I like seeing a lot of goals. And, a lot of goals are a lot of pretty plays happen, good passing, good shots. There's a lot of bad goals, too. I mean, I don't think there was anything, I'm trying to remember now, but I don't remember anything being too highlight-worthy. But it's fun, especially when that comeback starts.
Right. And you got to see a JVR hat trick back in Toronto. I also was at a game with a hat trick this week, and also a game with 13 goals. The Devils and the Flames in Calgary. That was a much different situation. 9-4 Flames in the end. Somehow, they were losing that game at the start of the third period. They were down 4-3 and scored 6 goals in the third, coming out with the big W.
That's crazy. I missed that game. But that sounds like an exciting third period.
As you should have, yeah. Well, Johnny Gaudreau got the hat trick, 6 points for him that game. And it was fun watching them trying to get Derek Ryan the hat trick the entire last 2 minutes of the game. Just he was getting the puck and shooting from everywhere. It was fun.
Did you get a bit of a sunburn from all that flames spewing out of the ceiling?
It's a little, yeah. Well, and I was sitting press level, so they're right at eye level. I definitely singed the eyebrows a little bit.
Yeah, no kidding.
But St. Patrick's Day, I don't really care. Like all these themed nights when you show up at the game and you've got a, you see Star Wars night, or I've been to a baseball game where they did Elvis night. Who really cares?
Wait, what did Elvis night entail?
So it entailed, actually, I've been to 2 different Elvis nights. One of them was with the St. John's Maple Leafs, the now defunct AHL team. Okay. And one of them was at a San Diego Padres game. And so the Elvis night entails the mascot dressing up like Elvis.
Of course.
And actually, fun story with that. With the Leafs, my mom was actually the official seamstress of the St. John's Maple Leafs. And so anytime the mascot needed a costume, she would make it for them. And so I had to help her try them on. And so I would dress up in the mascot suit in the basement, and she would put on these Elvis clothes. And so I'm trying to get dressed in the suit that I'm already wearing. There was a lot going on, but needless to say, I thank them for cleaning that thing out every now and again.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm assuming this is back before everyone had cameras in their pockets, so there's no chance of us seeing pictures of little Carl dressed up as Elvis. No,
there's no chance of little. You wouldn't be able to know. I was a very convincing mascot. I was about the same size as I am now. Just I guess height wise, I've put on a muscle, obviously, some muscle over the years.
Yeah, just pure muscle, of course.
Obviously, but that was fun. But anyways, yeah. So Vegas, Elvis, just some of those weird nights. I really don't care for them. They don't really add a whole lot. I love a bring your dog to the ballpark game. That's something I can get behind. But outside of that, I get why the teams do it. It's it's for the same reason that, yeah, I get why local teams want an outdoor game. It brings them in money, but I don't really care.
Yeah, it probably keeps kids occupied too.
Yeah, especially when St. Patrick's Day is on a weekend and you're able to get the families out there. Why not? But, there is a ton going on around the NHL. we're very close, shockingly close to the playoffs. And there are a number of teams that have already locked up their spots in the playoffs. Last week, Tampa had already done it. Calgary, number 2 in the league. They have locked up their spot. And they're, every night there are more and more teams that are going to start doing that. But as we look towards the playoffs, obviously there are teams fighting to get in. And there are teams that are doing everything that they can to best their position, right? You'd want, I'm sure that the Islanders would much rather play Columbus or Carolina than have to face the Pens or the Caps. So let's take a look right now. As it stands, obviously there are about 10 games left per team, but as it stands, what are the matchups we are going to get? And let's start out in the West. The Calgary Flames are currently slotted to play against the Arizona Coyotes, who, as a matter of fact, are currently beating the Tampa Bay Lightning.
So let's do a bit of a fire round game. Let's just go through this quickly. Western Conference.
Okay.
Just say who you think's going to win.
Right.
I'm not going to start with Calgary though.
Okay. Excellent.
Just tell me who you think's going to win.
Okay.
Winnipeg or Dallas?
Winnipeg.
Nashville, St. Louis.
Nashville.
San Jose, Vegas.
San Jose.
Okay, we're in agreement so far. Calgary, Arizona.
Ooh. Arizona's hot. Calgary, I will say Calgary, although that is the one that I want to be the opposite more than anything imaginable.
I think Calgary is going to be the biggest disappointment in the first round.
So you're thinking Calgary, no go, they're out in the first.
They're out in the first. Of all these teams that they could match up against, I think Calgary's out.
Now, is that because of, I would say that that's probably not because of whose Arizona is, but more so, who Calgary is.
Yeah, it's who the Flames are.
Yeah.
I think they're not as good as they've been playing this year.
They're not the second best team in the league?
No. And I don't think their goalies are going to carry them far into the playoffs at all, especially when it gets to that next intensity level.
Yeah, I agree. When you're looking into the playoffs and you're saying, you can only get, it's said that you can only switch goalies once in the playoffs, right? You get one chance to swap your goalie. If you need to do it twice, you're pretty much out. And we've seen it, right? Last year, the Caps with Philip Grubauer, they started with him for some weird reason and then switched back to Braden Holtby, won a Stanley Cup. You can get away with it, right? You can get away with some goalie issues. And almost every, we saw it with Chicago back in the day with Corey Crawford. Nashville's experienced that through the playoffs. Teams can get away with it, but not that much.
No, you need your goalie. And I don't trust either of the Flames goalies. I don't trust them against the Coyotes, the Stars, the Wild. I don't think the Avalanche are going to sneak.
I was like, keep going, Nick. Keep going.
And I certainly don't trust them against the Golden Knights.
No. There's no chance that the Knights, or you're saying if the Flames get passed by the Sharks?
The Sharks, yeah. Which is a very real possibility.
Yeah, if the Sharks manage to get their heads together, that's the thing. And we'll see. Tonight, that's our high sticking game, actually. So if you haven't gotten if you're listening, actually, one thing, we teased out that we're going to be doing a live show in 2 weeks. And we kind of did a soft launch on it tonight. We put it out on the Twitter. Hey, if you want to check it out. So there are some folks listening to the show right now, actually, as we record. So shout out. Thanks to Matt and Nick for, not you, Nick. Well, thanks for you for coming here, but,
no problem.
Second Nick, they're tuning in right now. And, so yeah, but that is the high sticking game tonight. And we will, be watching that. So we'll see, if the Sharks can keep coming, certainly the Flames can get past. And when you see them, and their goaltending, I want nothing more than to watch Mike Smith, fumble pucks all the way to a playoff exit early. So,
I mean, can't you watch that most nights?
You can. It's funny watching a Flames broadcast versus watching a normal team's broadcast. You see how much they love the fact that Mike Smith plays the puck to the point that they're like, David Riddick has really added this puck playing to his game this year. And that's all thanks to Mike Smith. I'm like, that's not a good thing. You don't want Mike Smith to be teaching him how to do it. It's like if you were like, hey, Dion, why don't you go teach the new guys how to take a slapper and hit the boards with it?
Yeah.
But
what do you mean? Everyone wants to hit the boards always. Sometimes it bounces in front of the net, Carl.
that's true, yeah. That is a fact. I was actually, when talking about being in Red Deer, I was at Dion Phaneuf's old high school.
Why?
Shockingly. That was, I was at a tournament this weekend.
Oh.
And it was hosted at a high school. And anyways, they were bragging about everyone. There was a former Red Wing, don't remember who it was, but Dion Phaneuf got the old plaque there.
Wow, that's fun.
Yeah, it was thrilling, as this story is. Next, so yeah, Calgary. Nick thinks I would love if they were. Let's keep the rapid fire going.
Okay, you want to go east?
Did we finish west?
Those are all the series in the West. But how do you feel about the wild card spot right now? You think Dallas and Arizona, it's theirs, they're going to run away with it?
I think Dallas is pretty firmly in. Right now they're sitting with 80 points. Minnesota's 3 back of that, but have played an extra game. Colorado have to gain 6 points on them in 10 games, which is a lot to do. But you look at Colorado, Minnesota, and Arizona. Those are the 3 teams fighting for that last spot. Arizona has continued to be red hot. I know I poo-pooed them recently and said, because Derek Stepan went down, right? And I was like, there's no chance that they're going to keep this up with him out of the lineup. It doesn't matter. They're still doing it. And so I would think that at this point, I would put my money on the team in a playoff spot than the team out of a playoff spot. Especially seeing how, Colorado with Landeskog out, needing to gain 4 points. It's still a lot.
Well, the thing with that is you're counting on other teams losing too. Like, you need other teams to lose in order for you to get in. Well, Colorado and Arizona both have 10 games left in the season, 4 points behind. It doesn't sound like much, but you need Arizona to lose too. At least. For sure.
Well, and so let's look at, it's that time of the year where you can look at the schedule. Obviously, playing Tampa tonight, not a game expected to win. Tampa has already tied that game. They play Tampa. Then they play the rest of the way. They play teams out of the playoffs. In the other 9 games, they play Florida, New Jersey, Chicago, and LA, Colorado, and Minnesota. So they really hold their own fate. If they manage to win those games, they're playing right now 6 games of their last 9 against teams currently out of a playoff spot. If they can't win those games, they don't deserve to be in the playoffs anyways.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Now,
those are very winnable games.
Exactly. If you flip it around and you look at the schedule for the Avalanche, right? They have games of teams currently in the playoffs. They play Dallas, they play Vegas, they play St. Louis, Winnipeg, and San Jose. A much more difficult schedule the rest of this way. They're really only the worst team they play is Chicago twice, and the Oilers. Chicago and the Oilers, which are they're about on par right now. And so that's really it, right? And so looking at that, even schedule wise, Arizona much better. If I pull up Minnesota's schedule is much worse. They have a tough slate. They play Washington, Carolina, Nashville, Vegas, Winnipeg, Boston, and Dallas. So, sorry, Minnesota.
So, Arizona's crawled its way out of the elimination station at this point.
Arizona, yeah. We'll have to
look like it won't be able to do that.
Yeah. So it's, we're planning to do 2 teams in the elimination station. We might have to uneliminate Arizona at some point as well, but
we may need to. I guess we were wrong in how to fix that team, and it's fixed itself.
It's fixed itself. The good news is that we don't need to eliminate Joel's team that he put in on his last episode. So
yes, that is true.
We would not want to have that legacy left hanging over his head. Now, so the East.
Okay, you want to go East?
Let's do.
I
don't know if I fully answered your question. I think Arizona stays. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's between Arizona and Minnesota, but after you read out those schedules to me, I would put my money on Arizona.
Excellent. Well, that if you had put that money on them at the start of the year, that'd get net you some pretty nice money.
Yeah, I'm not that smart though.
That's all right.
I'm not a big gambler, and when I am, I always go with the safe option.
Yeah, it's always, I think what they always say is take the safe bet and you'll never lose.
Yeah, exactly. Won't win much either, but okay, you want to do the East?
Yes. please.
There are some pretty interesting matchups, and I'm going to go in least interesting to most interesting.
Yeah, because there are some very nice matchups in this first round.
There's some weird ones. So basically, what I deem to be least interesting to what I deem to be most interesting. Okay, New York Islanders, Carolina Hurricanes.
So New York Islanders, Carolina Hurricanes. I think what's interesting about this, and I know he's not in the lineup like he maybe could or should be. This is the battle of the Sebastian Ahos, which is nice. So there's that. I love the fact that the Islanders managed to just forget the fact that they lost John Tavares, right? Now, there's also the fact that I do still enjoy me some Carolina Hurricanes. I guess this is not the opposite of rapid fire.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you better hurry up and fire here.
I am going to go with the Islanders.
Okay. Tampa Bay Lightning and Columbus Blue Jackets.
Tampa. And that's not going to be close.
Washington and Pittsburgh.
Washington.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. Boston and Toronto.
Toronto.
Oh, really interesting. So I don't know if I agree with you on all of these.
Okay, well tell me. Do you agree with me on any of them?
I can't remember what you chose for New York, Carolina.
I chose the Islanders, yeah.
Okay, then we agree on that one.
I just don't like Carolina's goaltending is so iffy.
Yeah, agreed.
They score enough goals, but the Islanders play really well defensively. Their goaltending, if Lehner comes back fairly healthy, that's good. I just don't. Peter Mrazek.
No, and you shouldn't take it from someone who's watched a lot of Peter Mrazek. Although I will say, when it came to playoffs, Mrazek was always on top of his game.
Well, there you go. Because there was 1 year that he had the helm. He took it over.
Yeah,
Howard.
They took Tampa to Game 7.
Yeah, that was a good little matchup.
Yeah, that was, and it was all Mrazek too, because the Red Wings still sucked. But yeah, I'd put my money on the Islanders over the Hurricanes right now. Plus, I just want the chaos of them continuing to have a strong season despite losing the chosen.
Now that said, the Islanders will have home ice advantage.
Yeah.
And so I do want that to go 7 so that the Hurricanes can win all 3 games at home.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I want to see what they do and just watch everyone lose their mind in the playoffs. It's going to be fantastic.
You need to see those playoffs, Elias. Tampa, Columbus. I agree with you. I think Tampa would win that matchup. But man, I want Columbus to go. I want them to make a run this year.
Why?
Because they made the trade deadline so interesting. They made so many fun, crazy moves to make a run this year. And I don't want people to be afraid of doing that in the future. I don't want them to be the case study where GMs look at them and say, we're not going to sell our farm to go at it this year because look what happened to Columbus.
Yeah, okay. I can see from that angle. I appreciate it. I come from the angle of still being bitter at Matt Duchene. And so I enjoy the fact that there's the Matt Duchene curse that is somehow following him. It's no longer the Senators stink. It's he's the problem. And so
you've been saying that all along.
You're preaching to the choir here, Carl. Preaching to my own choir. That's what you do, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's that side of it. I don't think the fact their handling of Bobrovsky right now has been just so confusing. And
tell me more about that.
Well, so obviously they loaded up at the deadline, as you mentioned, right? Lots of big moves. Lots of moves, some big, some small, some medium. And since the trade deadline, Sergei Bobrovsky has been a healthy scratch twice. Obviously, they brought in Keith Kincaid, so they have 3 goalies on their roster right now. But there's no reason that you should be having Bobrovsky benched, right? You're trying to get into a playoff spot, and I get the fact that maybe it's Torts saving him from himself, that if this game goes south, I don't want to have to put him in. Like he's getting his rest, and I don't want to have to use him no matter what. I get that, but also like Bobrovsky is that's where your bread is buttered right now, right? Like, sure, you've got the bread man, but your bread is buttered with Bobrovsky.
It's buttered with Bobrovsky, so he's like the butter that you spread over the toast?
Over the Panarin.
Or is he the one doing the buttering?
I would, think about it. Think about that one.
These expressions were not meant to be analyzed so deeply.
No, especially when I start changing them on the fly.
Yeah, yeah. Bobrovsky's played 54 games this year.
It's not very much.
And he's been pretty inconsistent.
So you're in favor of not playing him?
I don't know. I'm working through it right now.
Okay, while I think about who is buttering whose bread, you think about Sergei Bobrovsky's usage. Because when I look at it, it's the same thing, right? Like, do you want to miss the playoffs, which there is still a non-zero chance that the Jackets will miss the playoffs, right? They're in the last wildcard spot. Montreal is 3 points back, and that's, closer than or comparable to what we said Minnesota couldn't do. We can pull up the schedules as well, because Montreal is Flyers are 6 points back. They're essentially out as well. It's a 2-horse race there. But do you really want, if you were to miss the playoffs, be like, hey, what did you do with the number one goal, like one of the top 5 goaltenders in the league? Oh yeah, we didn't play him. Like, when he walks out the door next year, you're only doing him a favor if you give him rest, right? You're not helping your team at all.
I don't know how much of a favor you're giving him, because he's killing his value this year.
I mean, it's a lot better if you say, hey, look, you played your team into a playoff spot, instead of, hey, you didn't really do anything, right?
Yeah. He strikes me as the kind of guy, probably out of most of the teams that are in a playoff spot, at least in the East right now, that he could turn it on come playoffs and go on a crazy run. But there's also the other side of his game when he lets in 6 goals and takes off to the showers. Like, I don't know. Obviously, it could go either way. Do you think if there was any other coach, they'd be sitting him?
No, I think you, and there is obviously that side of it, right? You want to get him his rest. I would obviously, you have the two sides of the coin, right? You have what Babcock is doing with Freddie Anderson, which is never resting him ever, versus what Torts is doing. And so, yeah, I think if I would rather do that, I'd rather try to get in the playoffs with what brought me there. So
I guess you got the third goalie, so might as well spread out the games and let him rest.
Yeah, like once you're in the playoffs, I 100% support it, right? Sit Bobrovsky as much as you want, but you're not there yet. And it's like a fireable offense on all accounts if you start sitting one of your top players, one of the best at his position in the world, and you don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's just Torts things, I guess.
Just Torts things. That's it's one of my favorite subreddits.
I would not go there.
Yeah. There's a lot of yelling there. It's just
I can imagine
people trolling each other. It's a terrible place to be. Yeah.
I do like if the Jackets make it to even the conference final, I wonder what it'll do to their free agent situation, and all 4 of those guys who they now have.
Yeah.
Anyways,
it does become interesting, right? You all of a sudden win, and you got a lot more to think about.
Yeah, for sure. Washington, Pittsburgh. Washington, I think you're right, is probably going to push through.
Yeah, Washington's been a lot more consistent this year. Pittsburgh has done quite well as of late, making their typical late Pittsburgh run. But as they're wont to do, but like they always, I honestly look every trade deadline, whatever trade Pittsburgh makes, I'm like, oh, that's going to be a great trade for them, because they've just proven it so many times.
They're also they're a playoff team. Like, all those guys they know what it's like. They're so used to playing in the playoffs. That series, I think it wouldn't surprise me if it went Pittsburgh or Washington. I could see both of them making it out.
Yeah, one thing that does tip the scales on that, Evgeny Malkin week to week right now, and so that definitely is a factor for sure when you're missing your number 2 gun offensively. So
yeah, that hurts.
Which brings us to Boston and Toronto. I said Toronto. You reacted noticeably.
I think it's Boston.
Now, is that just you wanting to see Toronto media collapse in on itself?
Yes.
Okay. I support that. I support that reasoning.
But I also think that we talked about this last week. I think that Boston's in Toronto's head, and Toronto could crash and burn if it starts to fall behind a little bit.
Yeah, they do have to come out guns a-blazing. Now, they will have, or Boston will have, rather, home ice through that series as it stands right now, and it doesn't seem very likely to me that they will be caught. Boston is 4 points up on Toronto, and there's a lot happening the rest of the way. So, they have comparable schedules, and so looking at that, it seems Boston will have home ice. So,
and again, so much of it comes down to goaltending. And both of these teams have pretty volatile goaltenders. You never really know what they're going to bring.
And both of them had Rask and Anderson can both steal a game, no matter what's happening around them, right? Freddie's gotten a lot more work in than Rask has this year.
Yeah, I mean they can also both let in 4 goals in the first period.
And we've seen many a time how fragile Tuukka is. So that's certainly a factor that you need to start looking at, and so that series is one that I do think that'll be the closest of all the current first round matchups. That's the one that is going to be the closest and the most questionable on where it's going to go, and the one I'm going to be watching the most.
Yeah, it'll also be the one that's most closely followed by Sportsnet and literally everyone who covers hockey.
Exactly. So we'll probably be on the other side of that. Then we'll follow it the least closely, just for everyone out there. Especially if Boston's winning. If Boston's winning that series, then we'll quickly be turning it off.
Yeah, very quickly.
And that is fine. So the wild card, right? Carolina fairly secure in there. They're sitting with 85 points. I guess not that secure. They do have an extra game, 85 points, 4 up on Montreal, 7 up on Philly. Columbus is 3 up on Montreal. Do you think Montreal and or Philly can manage to sneak in?
Definitely not Philly. I don't think Montreal can at this point either. It's a big hill to climb, and Carolina does have a game in hand on them too.
Now, the only saving grace for Montreal, and we looked at schedule on the west side of it, and there are a lot of games. Montreal has a murderer's row coming up at the end of their season, and what they have to hope is that some of those teams are resting some guys, giving them some time off, sitting Freddie Anderson, because this is what Montreal has. Nick, we're in the middle of a podcast. You want to turn your phone off?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Last stretch of games. So they do play Columbus, their 5th last game. Montreal does. And then they finish with Winnipeg, Tampa, Washington, and Toronto. So those 4 games, a lot riding on that. And so you have to think, Montreal to me has to be in a playoff spot by that stretch. If you're not there, to think that you can gain on Columbus while playing those teams, it's a lot to happen.
They gotta be firmly in that playoff spot and hope that Columbus isn't winning games while they're going through that stretch.
Yeah, so and that's to say that so that gives them 6 games to get into a playoff spot, gain 3 points. Not impossible, but they need a lot of help from Columbus's side. Yeah,
big time. The Canadiens too have been a pretty good surprise this year, no? Along with the Flames.
Yeah, not as much. I think we saw, you saw firsthand the other night how good Carey Price can still be against your Red Wings there, and so that helps when you have the opposite of the Flames goaltending. That's really a helpful thing.
Yeah, that is very true.
Well, speaking of playoffs and speaking of that, do we want to go to the Elimination Station right now?
Let's do it.
Elimination Station.
So Nick, let's do a quick recap on who is in and who is out of the Elimination Station. We have the Anaheim Ducks, somehow one of the Arizona Coyotes and Minnesota Wild likely to be in, the Edmonton Oilers, New Jersey Devils, Detroit Red Wings, LA Kings, Ottawa Senators, Chicago Blackhawks, and last week's edition, the New York Rangers. They are all teams that at some point this year we said they're done, they're out, call it a season. I'm going to let you start with where you think this is going to happen. Who is the next team eliminated?
Oh, I've given no thought to this. Let's go with Buffalo.
Okay.
What do you think?
I was going to go, you know what? We'll go with Buffalo. If we can get to a second team, because we are still needing to play some catch up on the Elimination Station. I'm going to give you my other suggestion. One that I'm actually shocked that they haven't been eliminated yet. So the Buffalo Sabres, a team previously, in a playoff spot, healthily in a playoff spot. Winners of, I believe, did they make it to 11 in a row earlier this year, or was it only 10?
If my memory serves me, I think it was 11.
Okay, so 11 of their 31 wins came consecutively. So outside of that stretch, they are a 20, 32 and 9 team, which, if I stall long enough, I can do the math on what that would be on a pace note. But bad, right? Outside of that stretch, they have fallen apart late in the year. And there's obviously hope with this team, right? This is a team on like the upswing of a rebuild. Is this as good as you thought the Sabres would be this year? Did you, at the start of the year, if I told you, hey, Sabres wouldn't be eliminated in the Elimination Station until March 18th, that would seem like a success to me.
Yeah, big time. I mean, I think they're about where they should be in their rebuilding process. Like they're not a playoff team yet. And cap-wise, they've got a lot to work with. They've got a pretty good prospect pool. And they're going to draft relatively high again.
Yeah, they'll probably be a top 10 pick. There's obviously a chance, as all lottery teams, as non-playoff teams do, that they could get the first. But there's still some issues with this team. The biggest, obviously, being, I would say defensively, they've got some big issues. And goaltending, right? Carter Hutton was fantastic to start the year. Much less so now.
Yeah. To me, no question, they need a goalie. Like a good goalie.
And so what is your, obviously the easiest solution is sign Bobrovsky, right? Sergei Bobrovsky can fix a lot of holes for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Realistically, though, what do you think the Sabres will do with that?
They'll probably play Carter Hutton again. He's got a couple of years left. Look, if they can lure Bobrovsky over, then obviously you do that. But, I mean, I apologize if you're from Buffalo, but I don't think Buffalo is at the top of a lot of premium free agents lists of cities they want to go to.
No, I would, but you look a few years ago, right? They managed, certainly not a great signing now, but at the time, Kyle Okposo was a big piece and a big get for them. And that was while they weren't even as good as they were now. That was before they had Rasmus Dahlin there, right? So there is evidence in the past that they've been able to do that. I think the biggest get for them will be managing to re-sign Jeff Skinner.
Or like what? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do about Jeff Skinner. Like, is this for real? Is he going to be worth the $10+ million he's going to get this year for the rest of his career?
No, he will not be. And they did not give up a large piece, right? Like they didn't give up a ton for him. It's essentially at this point a second round pick is what they gave up. Fantastic trade for them. If they can manage to re-sign him, that's great. I do think Jeff Skinner is very good though.
Yeah. Is he like he's going to get 10 million, right?
He better not.
On the market?
I would pay Jeff Skinner
9?
8, 9. What did Mark Stone get? I would give him Stone money.
Mark Stone, I believe, got 9
I would give him that
million. We should probably check that though.
Okay. I would give him whatever Mark Stone got. And so, and
it still feels like a lot to me.
Like we're looking at a guy who has, my biggest issue with Jeff Skinner in the past was the fact that I always thought, and there was a number of years early in his career that he had injury struggles. That is behind him. He has scored this year 37 goals. He scored 37 2 years ago. He has scored 33 in the past. This is a guy who repeatedly and consistently scores 20 plus high 20s goals. There is a strong chance he will hit 40 this year. And if you can add 40 goals to your team, even if you can add 30 goals to your team, or even, 25, we saw what James Neal managed to get last year. And that was a lot.
Yeah. Mark Stone is going to make $9.5 million on his new deal.
Oof.
So I mean, it's a lot for Jeff Skinner, but I think for Buffalo, it's just going to be, you can't make what Jack Eichel does. It has to come in below Eichel.
Right. And sure. And Eichel's clocking in right now at 10.
At 10.
And he shouldn't make more than Jack Eichel does, right? Or even, percent wise, he could probably pull that up to 10, once the cap comes in. But Buffalo has a lot of consistent, play outside of that, right? Pominville's money's coming up. He's not going to be making 5.6 next year. So you've got Jeff Skinner is really the only piece that they have to sign. They've got some minor pieces that are RFAs, easily signable, there. And so from that perspective, and they're not paying Jeff Molson $4 million to play in the A. So,
yeah, I think they're getting to the time where they're going to start dabbling into free agency, and maybe they'll do it successfully.
Yeah, I would, if I was Buffalo, I would be very much trying to sign Jeff Skinner. And
they brought Brandon Montour in too.
Yeah, for sure. And that,
sorry to interrupt you, but yeah.
Yeah, and that does help their defensive woes that they've had this year. Another year better for Rasmus Dahlin, who has had a very good rookie season.
Yeah, he's been. I feel like he's been kind of under the radar. No one's really talking about how good he's been this year.
Well, when you're a good defenseman, people don't notice. That like, to me, that's a sign of a good defense. When you're playing as many minutes as he is and playing well, and people aren't like calling for you to get less time, right? Like the amount of defensemen who are good, who get ridiculed, is shocking.
Yeah.
And so when you're able to do that, obviously, his sample size of, a little more slack, but he's at the top of that team in ice time. He's been fantastic. 21 minutes a night for Rasmus Dahlin. Pretty good. It's
good for a rookie defenseman. An 18-year-old at that.
Yeah, an 18-year-old defenseman playing that much. That is very nice. So yeah, that would be what I would be looking at for the Sabres. Maybe, they're going to be looking for another defense or another goaltender. Who that is yet to be seen. I would, for sure, if they do not sign in a big name, I would not be surprised to see a Cam Talbot-esque like guy show up in Buffalo.
Yeah, whatever. Then they can have two of those types of goalies.
Right. You can overpay Carter Hutton and pay probably consistently what that is. So, and then just ride the hot hand. Try that out.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, man, if it can get you to the playoffs, you never know what can happen.
No. Crazier things have happened.
Yeah.
Look at the Calgary Flames.
Yeah. Exactly.
Do we want a second elimination? Is this the week that we finally catch up?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Oh, yeah, let's write down who we eliminated.
So we eliminated the Buffalo Sabres. So my eye last week I was looking at a team that I'm not looking at right now anymore. So I'm gonna, both of them in due time will be eliminated from our playoff race, but the Vancouver Canucks, another team in the same line of the Buffalo Sabres that have somehow managed to not embarrass themselves this year.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. The Canucks, though, are not in as good of shape, I think, cap-wise, as the Sabres are.
A little less flexibility for them, for sure.
Yeah.
Because they decided to fill their bottom six with overpaid players, right? Like they've got their bottom six is all making $3 million a year, and you can't do that.
Yeah, for a long time too.
Yeah. Don't hand out term to bad players to play in your bottom. But the fact that Jacob Markstrom has somehow been good is shocking.
Yeah. I mean, he's been okay, right? Has he been consistently good?
I would say, yeah, he has been consistently overperforming from what we've seen from him before.
Well, that's good for them. That's why we're sitting here saying they're not the disaster that we thought they'd be.
Yeah.
That plus Elias Pettersson being a highlight reel player.
He's pretty good, yeah.
Pretty good.
He's okay. But again, right, like he is a guy that is the new future for that team, which is nice because like we looked, 2 years ago, everyone was like, Bo Horvat, he's the guy, and then Brock Besser showed up, and everyone was like, man, Brock Besser's amazing, and now you've added Elias Pettersson, and the fact that you've now like Bo Horvat, no one's talking about how good he is, and he's still a reasonably good player, right? He's a good center that you can have on this team, and he's doing well for himself. So that's the fact that you have those three is nice and a thing to build around, right?
So what's their next move?
Oh, I don't not sign anyone. Just don't do anything in free agency this year. That's your move, Vancouver.
I think you're right. They got to be in a bit of a holding pattern. They've got some talent down the pipe, which I think is a good thing. They got all their draft picks. Just ride it out another year.
Yeah. Well, and you have a reasonable amount. There's not a ton of money coming off, right? Alex Edler, his $5 million coming off the cap. You have to pay, some of these guys, like some medium. Marcus Granlund's got to get a new deal, and some, you have to pay Josh Levo. We know how much that's going to cost. The big one, Brock Besser, he needs a new deal. What do you expect a Brock Besser contract to come in at?
Oh, a 22-year-old. He's got 50 points this year. I don't know. I mean, like, they're probably going to keep him $5 million? 6?
I would expect 6 to be kind of a reasonable point, especially, the longer you go, the more it'll cost.
I mean, you look at Bo Horvat, who you're just talking about. He's got more points than Besser, and he's at 5.5.
Yeah. I think 6 for me is the number there that we'd be coming in at. But none of these big ticket items are coming off, right? Like you still have Brandon Sutter, you still have Sven Barchi and Tanner Pearson, Ryan Spooner somehow is on this team. There's just a lot of those pieces that are still kicking around. And so until, some of them come off next year, most of them don't come off for 2 more years. So you have 2 more years really until the Canucks. They need some big cap changes to happen. For me, it's really comes down to just hoping for some more development, some good drafting. We'll see if Levy can, actually make this team next year. That would be a huge gift for them to have him on this roster. But they've got to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not as dire though. I don't feel as negative about it as I did before.
I still do. Like I still look at this team and I'm like, what are you doing with yourselves? Like the fact that these are the guys that you're looking at and you're like, you can't just bury all of them and hope to bring up some minor leaguers, right? Like, or someone to fill that void. And so you've got to do something to get that to happen.
They have 11 defensemen on contract right now.
They have 11 defensemen on their active roster right now. Like that is insane.
That's like twice as many as you need.
Yeah. That's there's a lot going on, and I have heard of almost none of them.
Yeah,
like there are at least 3 there that I have. Ashton Sautner, Guillaume Brisebois. Like what? There's no need to have these guys on your team, right? Like
no.
They signed Quentin Hughes Obviously, Jack Hughes' brother. Maybe not obvious to some, but that is a future first overall pick, Jack Hughes' brother. He's a defenseman on this team. Now they signed him this week out of college. So
he's going to be really good.
He's going to be good for sure. And then, if you can replace Luke Shen with Quentin Hughes, that's a win.
That's a big win. Yeah. So, but like you said, 2 years, some of those contracts come off the books. Their young players are starting to enter their prime. They're going to be very good. If they stay the course, they'll be okay, but they just can't do anything too rash.
No. And just please don't sign someone this year if you want to be good. We will laugh at you again. When you give, who is the free agent that Vancouver is most likely to overpay for this year?
Ooh, that's a fun game. Let's pull up the handy free agent tool. To overpay. Who are they going to overpay this year? I could see them bringing someone like Jason Pominville over. Just some veteran experience. That sounds like something a Canadian market would do. Kevin Hayes, maybe.
But that's an actually good deal, though.
Not if you overpay.
Fair, yep.
I don't know. To me, it feels like something they go for someone older, just for that veteran presence.
Yeah, I would.
The intangibles.
Guys that I'm looking at a. I could see them bringing in I fully expect them to sign Derek Brassard to a shockingly big deal.
Could see that.
That's a guy that you're like, you know what, and their logic is he's the same logic that I hear them use in Avalanche broadcasts all season. They're like, he's been to the Stanley Cup Finals a lot. He's been to the playoffs a lot. That's a guy that you need. He brings veteran experience, and you have that, and that's the guys that I'm looking at as a guy. So yeah, that's welcome to Vancouver, Derek Brassard.
And we should write that one down as well, so we don't forget.
Yeah, there we go. Vancouver, welcome to the Elimination Station as well. Which brings us to the Pavel Bures, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you're not mistaken. It brings us to the Pavel Bures.
Wait, before we do that, we should pick someone to win high sticking, do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
We did say that we would, so we should probably follow through on that promise.
And I said it on the internet this morning.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do that. Our high sticking, that's our game we play with the Pavel Bures. What we'll do very shortly is we're going to pick our must-watch games of the week, where we'll tell you who you should watch. And there's, coming down to this stretch, this is like the important time. Like, this is a game that has actual playoff implications. That's a word that I had struggle saying. Words are hard. Hey, I host a podcast. Did you know that? I talk every week, shockingly.
It's shocking. It allows you to do this.
The internet's a wonderful place where you can argue on the Torch subreddit and everything. So we pick the games that you should watch. You play high sticking on the Twitters. Pick who you think will win the score. You get points, and we send you stuff. Now we are, our marketing team is working behind the scenes to put together some new swag for us. That'll be coming out shortly. We're going to have some of that. We're aiming to have something that's summer themed and something that's winter themed, so that you can get some summer prizes, some winter prizes, and be able to enjoy us in all seasons. We'll leave it at that.
Okay. A little tease. I like it. A
little bit of a tease. That's what they call us. We're just a little bit of a tease. But okay. Until then,
if this episode comes out tonight and the title is a little bit of a tease, I'm quitting.
Well, you had to say that now, right? Like you had to,
Carl.
You had to tell me. Essentially, what you said was, "Hey, Carl, can you name this episode a little bit of a tease?"
Don't do it.
So that'll be a fun thing that Nick is to experience later. So here's what we're gonna do. We have given out points. We kept this one pretty short, so we've been able to have a total of 159 points handed out. I've got the number random generator up. We are going to take a look-see and see who wins. The number that wins, the winning number, is number 66, which goes to Kat Noby. Congratulations on winning this round of high sticking. Let us know if you want a Fourth Line Podcast coaster or a Fourth Line Podcast puck. You're not in the chat right now, but you could win one of these. You could win, as I knock over my microphone, you could win one of these, right? Those are the prizes we got right now. And like you said, there'll be more coming, but send us a DM and let us know. We're resetting right now, fresh slate of points, which starts in mere hours, Sharks and Knights on the West Coast. But for the rest of the week, looking at Tuesday's schedule, what game do you look at and say that's what the game you should be watching for Tuesday?
Tuesday, March 19th. I think we should watch Pittsburgh, Carolina.
Pittsburgh, Carolina is a game with some serious playoff implications. I am biased, but Colorado, Minnesota, if Colorado wins and Minnesota loses, that more so is Arizona.
Yeah, I thought about that, but neither of those teams are in the playoffs right now.
It's true. Well, there you go. 2 playoff teams. Let's see how good how good Carolina is. Pittsburgh, Carolina. Tuesday, we've got...
You mean Wednesday?
Wednesday. We've got Tampa and Washington. That's what I'm looking at. Tampa, Washington. Some solid playoff teams there.
Yep. Thursday. Let's go. Oh, there's a lot of games. I always end up choosing the days I have so many games. Let's go Islanders, Canadians.
Islanders, Canadians. Very, very good. That was one we had last week as well, I believe, and the Islanders came out in overtime.
Oh, rematch.
Yeah, so let's see if they can pull that off. Islanders, there is a number of other good games that day as well. Tampa, Carolina, tough schedule this week as well. Pittsburgh, Nashville, and Winnipeg, Vegas are all games that are going to be very playoff v playoff type games. Stay tuned for that. There's, as you mentioned, a big schedule on Thursday. Friday has 2 games, and I'm going with Minnesota versus Washington.
Yeah, that's the right call.
Which brings us to Saturday, where we have some weird hockey night in Canada games. Most weird, the Rangers and the Leafs. So that'll be a real thrill fest.
Boring. I think the game to watch on Saturday is Nashville, Winnipeg.
You are correct. That is the game to watch for myself as well. And that is the early evening game there. So stay tuned for that early evening on Saturday. Sunday brings us a healthy schedule, where I'm gonna, we haven't had them in high sticking yet this week. Everyone else that I've thought of is Arizona versus the New York Islanders. Arizona in a playoff spot. The other one that I'm looking at for that day as well is Montreal, Carolina. That is wild card versus potential wild card. A must win for Montreal, as they all are at this point. So those are the games. Let's just take a quick look and see for Monday if there's any games that really stand out for us. There's some good games for Monday. We've got Vegas, St. Louis, right? Those are 2 playoff teams. We could pick Boston, but there's a rule against that. Boston, Tampa, that's a game that's happening there as well.
No one wants to watch Boston.
No one wants to watch Boston. Nashville, Minnesota, Dallas, Winnipeg. So there are a number of very good games on Monday.
Dallas, Winnipeg is the first round matchup right now.
Well, there we go. That's the first round matchup. That'll be, let's put that in there. Next Monday, we'll be recording a podcast until right when that game starts. Oh, no, about halfway. That game starts at 6. We usually wrap it up at about 6:30 Mountain Time. There we go. So that is the facts for that day. If you are one and you want to see us as we record our live episode of our podcast, we have had a number of people come through today as we've done it with literally zero notice.
For us too. We just decided to do it last minute.
We had multiple wardrobe changes because we were not adequately classy for this event.
Yeah, definitely not classy enough. I had to take off my suit.
No, exactly. I had to change out of just a tank top. It was it's hot outside. I've got to get some tan in. I've got to get some rays. So
you're welcome, audience.
You are welcome that we fixed that. So we've got that coming up. That is going to be Wednesday, March 27th. I was going to say 28th, but the 28th is a Thursday, and that would confuse everyone. Wednesday, March 27th. You can watch us here live as Nick enjoys the Colorado Avalanche Stanley Cup winning video. You can follow along at home, watch that live, experience that. That's going to be, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, I believe it's 6 o'clock Eastern, or 8 o'clock Eastern time, 6 o'clock Mountain time, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
So tune in there. We'll be obviously reminding you on the socials that day to tune in, and you can see live and in person Nick's reaction as he gets to celebrate the Avalanche with me on a very, very magical day.
It's not that magical.
It's a pretty magical day, but as well as, so there's that big event going on, and if you are one who enjoys events that are fun and exciting, head to albertapodcastnetwork.com/events. You will be able to, in due time, find our event there on March 27th. But other events that Alberta Podcast Network podcasts are part of. So one of those, April 4th up in Edmonton. That was actually in Calgary. So that's going to be, they're doing a peer reviewing podcast, event there, a event, April 5th, podcasting for multiple publics, podcaster and Simon Fraser University professor Hannah McGregor, who's at the April 4th event as well, offers a workshop at Mount Royal University on podcasting at the intersection of academia, activism, and accessibility, which is, a lot of a mouthful, but something that's very important and a lot going on there right now. So, tune in if that's something that interests you.
And you're a podcaster, so you can say all those big fancy words.
I mean, yeah, I practiced them a lot beforehand, so I didn't mess them up. But little does the audience know that was also my third take. That was my third take of it. The magic of podcasting is that I can fix that.
Yes, there you go.
Well, you can find us on Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast, thefourthlinepodcast.com. I have it on very good authority because I have already read one of his articles. Mike Laybourne is coming out with a recap of the NWHL season. They just crowned a winner. Congratulations to Minnesota. They are Isabel Cup champions, and he's going to be having some content up on the site looking at the NWHL season. Some of them. One thing that I was unaware of until he informed me while he was watching games this weekend, Connecticut, according to Mike, 2 player coaches.
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
I was going to have to do some research this week.
We've got a team, and it's Connecticut. They're terrible, by the way. Yeah, they did make it a reasonable playoff run, but
doesn't matter. They're my favorite team now.
Yeah. So the Connecticut player coaches. That's them. So you can find that at thefourthlinepodcast.com, facebook.com/thefourthlinepodcast. Obviously, play high sticking, and you, like Kat Noby, can be a winner as well. Keep on playing. We'll be sending out some merch this week, and the next round will be right before the playoffs, where we play some rapid fire high sticking all playoffs long. It gets very frantic, and I lose many minutes of sleep while trying to gather up scores. So
I can't wait.
It's going to be good. I'm excited for the playoffs. Nice weather means playoff hockey is right around the corner, and that is great. So until next week, thank you very much for being here.
Adios.